the reason I'm telling this story first is because it's very relevant to today's Guanxi Corner, because I think a lot of people might listen to today's Guanxi Corner and say, this guy's making it up. It's a bunch of fanciful nonsense, but it's actually not. Now, Michael Simpson, he moved to China, to Shanghai. He's I think he's a marketing head of the Next fashion brand or something. Correct. Anyway, he met one of his assistants in the shop type thing and got married straight away, fresh off the boat, you know. And I think this happens to a lot of guys before they get to know China very well. They don't understand the warning signs because they're not used to the culture and they're not used to the people. So he married someone who's a bit unstable, to put it mildly. Anyway, they had 2 children, as you can see in the picture here. And the relationship fell apart. They got divorced. And he moved in with his new girlfriend in Shanghai. Anyway, 2 years later, his ex-wife turns up at the door. This is in 2017. And stabbed him to death. Stabbed him in the throat. Because she came over to say, hey, listen, she wants to talk. So he lets her in. Not only did she stab him and kill him, but seriously injured his new girlfriend. She's got lifelong injuries, like severed her like tendons and stuff in her arm and stuff because she was defending herself.
Well, we're definitely going to get demonetized now, so it's too late.
Well, I mean, just saying. So she murdered him, in cold blood. The children were in the house in another room. Yeah. Anyway, she did get arrested. And
which I'm surprised.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised, but kind of surprised.
No, she got arrested. And, the children were then... Now, this is the part that really irks me, okay? These children both are British citizens. He's British, right? Okay, joint British and Chinese citizens, the way Chinese, it works. Which is not really allowed in China, but it's not recognized in China. That's what makes this worse.
No, you see, they can have the resident... Kids before they're 18 can have a resident book to live in China, but they have their citizenship. That's what we did. All right, cool.
Anyway, basically what happened is the children were then handed over to the mother, the murderer's parents, that set of grandparents, who lived 1,000 miles away in like a very rural city in Hubei. The grandfather's an illiterate bicycle repairman, one
of those street side ones.
Yeah, street guys. Basically, those
guys are awesome, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. But the grandparents were impoverished, living in like basically a terrible situation. Grandkids sent there. All right. His parents, the murdered guy's parents, obviously wanted custody of the children, China's like, no. Okay. They fly over there.
China says no.
Yeah. Now, here's the disgusting thing. The grandparents living in the rural part of China said, you can have custody of the children if you pay us more than 500,000 RMB. So they basically tried to sell the children.
It's like $100,000 almost.
Yeah. Try to sell the children to, the British grandparents. And they wouldn't even let them talk to the children unless they paid, what was it, like 8,000 pounds, 9,000 pounds, like whatever it is, 80,000 RMB. Now, this is also what's really frustrating is the grandparents told the children that their father, the murdered father, had abandoned them and gone overseas to work, basically. So they didn't even know that the father was dead yet, okay?
Right.
They didn't know that their mother had murdered their father either. And bear in mind, the kids have been living with the father full time for 2 years. They loved their father. He loved them. The mother wasn't even around. She's, a crazy...
Well, she's a murderer.
Yeah.
Can get some insight.
Yeah, okay. But now the kids are being told that the father's abandoned them, basically, and gone overseas. So anyway... They wanted that 550,000 RMB, $100,000 or whatever, to sell the children. And they also wanted a letter of forgiveness from those grandparents. Because apparently, according to Chinese law, if a letter of forgiveness is written, then the sentence gets reduced. So her sentence would have been reduced, because she got 20 years, but it would have been reduced from 20 down to 10, actually cut in half.
It's the old face thing.
If the British grandparents had written a letter of forgiveness... Yeah. So you got to understand, this throws so many things out there, like how the Chinese legal system works. Okay,
it doesn't.
It's like you murder someone, all right? But if the person you murdered's relatives write you a letter of forgiveness, suddenly your sentence can be reduced massively. It's a very, very dodgy system. Because think about the bribery that can be involved, all the backdoor situations that can actually be used.
Of course. Give the judge a BMW. It's over.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a body double go to jail for you.
Yeah, there's all sorts of crap. But what I'm trying to put forward is the absolute absurdity of the situation, okay? When the grandfather, his name's Ian, okay, went over, the British grandfather went over, one of the uncles of the Fu family actually told him that he should feel sorry for the woman, the murderer, because she's just lost a husband. And that he should pay
reiterate that.
Yeah.
The uncle
said
told the British grandpa
yeah.
that he should be easy on the woman and give her sympathy because her husband just died.
Let me read the exact quote. Okay. He said, an uncle of the Fu family, who is himself a judge, so he's a Chinese judge, told the British grandparent, you should have sympathy for Wei Wei because she has lost her husband. And he also demanded that the British grandparents give money to the family because they are looking after your grandchildren.
Was he told, or was the court convinced that she wasn't the murderer at that point?
No, they knew. Then
obviously. How do you say that? That's psychopath.
So this is what the British grandfather said. He said, they seem to have forgotten the backstory and decided that we are bad guys coming to take their grandchildren away. Okay. I told him, we are the ones who lost a son. Your daughter killed our son and killed the children's father. You see, the logic here is absolutely astounding. And this is what happens when you have a foreigner versus Chinese situation. Because according to Chinese law, only the parents have the right to decide who should care for their children. And this is what happened, okay? Their father died, but their mother is alive. Before she was jailed, she wrote a letter of authorization to her brother and father, making them guardians of her children. Therefore, the British grandparents have no right to apply to be the children's guardians. So she murders her husband, and then she gets to decide where her children stay. Do you understand just how ridiculous that situation is? So it was her, the murderer, who said, I give custody of my children to my brother and my father. It's absolutely absurd. Yeah. So anywhere else in the world, I think people would be like, wait, what the hell? You know, surely sure, yeah, the government should step in and take protective custody of the children, and they should decide, and certainly not rely on the murderers, you know.
Now, the reason this happened a while ago, and it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
So the British grandparents have gotten custody of one child.
Yeah, I'll just quickly finish that off. They were in negotiations, of course, to try and bring both children back, because you have to understand that the opportunity, well, first of all, it's their grandchildren. I understand it's also the Chinese grandparents, but the Chinese grandparents are living in abject poverty in the middle of the countryside and cannot offer a good upbringing to these children.
No.
Okay. Also, their daughter murdered the son of the other two.
Their dad.
Okay. Yeah, the daughter murdered the dad. I think in this situation, everybody could agree that morally, the not murderer grandparents should take custody, because you're dealing with a family of crazies, and the way that the family behaved.
I mean, afterwards, you can't pin the crime on them, but what you can do is look at their actions after the fact.
Yeah, they try to sell the children. They actually try to sell the children as if they were commodities. You should be like, you know what, the British grandparents should get him. Anyway, they managed to get custody of the girl, because in traditional Chinese values or whatever, a girl is worth way less than a boy as a child. So they refused to let the boy go back to England, but they did. They allowed the girl to go back after being paid another, whatever it was, 80,000 RMB, and with promises that the girl has to call once a week on WeChat and stuff like that, you know, and whatever. And that's fine. But the fact that they had to sell the girl to the other grandparents and put them through all this rigmarole, and then at the last minute refused to sell the son to the grandparents and kept him in rural China, where they've still telling him that his father abandoned him, by the way. He still doesn't know his father's dead, which is ridiculous.
Dude, that's so
and he cannot speak English anymore, even though he grew up learning English with his father. They've erased that part of him away from him. And it's a terrible, terrible story. And I want people to listen to this story because it's very true. Look it up. The guy's name is Michael Simpson. You can read about it online. It's just horrific. And this is what happens when you get a court battle situation with a foreigner versus Chinese. It's almost impossible for the foreigner to win because you have to play by the Chinese rules, and China is always number one. China is always right. Our Chinese people always come first. You know?
Not only not playing devil's advocate here at all. It also happens. It's not just about this. It's so niche to just point out this is what happens with foreigner versus Chinese.
Sure.
This also happens when one party has massive influence
yes.
and the other party does not. You are powerless in court because there is no independent judiciary.
That's true.
And that's the base function, right? It doesn't matter if you're a foreigner or not. If you have an independent judiciary, you should have a fair trial.
Sure.
Right? If you come to the U.S., a Chinese person can go to court. They can have a fair trial.
Yeah.
You can't do that as a foreigner. You can't do that as a poor person. You can't do that as someone that has no connections in
yes.
China. It's all the same.
Yeah.
It's bribery and it's corruption and it's pure evil.
Absolutely. And you're 100% correct. The difference is that this is not a particularly well-connected family we're talking about here.
That's
so in this,
where that's...
in this situation,
I agree.
Foreigner versus Chinese will always take precedence 100% of the time.
There's like a caste tier system. Foreigners the bottom.
But yes, we've both met a lot of Chinese people in China who've been screwed over.
Totally screwed.
And there's nothing they can do, even when it's not their fault at all.
Especially when it comes to like property and stuff, or like, especially lost generation parents.
Oh, it's terrible.
So the reason we brought this up, because it is old news.
Yes.
The update is that, like you said, one child has gone back to British custody.
Yeah.
Now, we were contacted by a person. We were going to... He didn't even ask for this, but I'm going to change his name and his wife's name and any date and any pertinent information, but keep the meat of the story, exactly what happened. And locations I'll change as well. The reason I brought this up is because it mirrors this quite succinctly, this story. And this is something happening now. So, yes, we didn't know Michael Simpson. It's something we feel heavily for.
It happened while we were in China. And we have very similar circumstances because we're both married. We both have half Chinese, half Western children. And although we know our wives would never pull anything like that and try to murder us, hopefully, with a knife. The fact of the matter is, you realize just how little... how few, in fact, non-existent rights you have as a foreigner living in China. If anything ever happens in the legal sense, you don't have a leg to stand on. I know I am not an American citizen. I'm here, on a legitimate working visa. I know that if I get into some kind of dispute, and let's just say something happens, an altercation or some kind of legal battle happens, I will have the same representation and the same amount of rights as a local American. If we're in a car accident and whatever, anything like that, I know that I will have a fair go at it. I know that the courts will treat me fairly. But I know in China that there's no chance at all that the courts will treat me fairly, and I have no rights in China as a foreigner. That's something that became very clear over the years living in China.
Agreed.
And this really hit it home.
So we were contacted by somebody that has a very similar story, but this is a current story.
Okay.
And it's someone that we have personal contact with.
Yes.
I asked him, can we cover this? Like, it was that big of a deal. I was like, can we cover this on the podcast? And he goes, absolutely. Not only might there be people that can reach out and help me, or, just potentially get the word out, right?
Right.
So this is what happened. You ready?
Yep.
So back in 2012, my wife and I, Jane, were in Australia. Oh, I'm from Australia, by the way. But this is going to be very reading heavy, guys. Just bear with me. Anyways, we were in Australia trying desperately to avoid returning to China and my wife's toxic family. Her dad and her stepmom are both nouveau riche, forgotten generation boomers, and have gotten most of the lost generation type attributes like screwing anyone over for 10 mao. 10 mao is a very low
10
denomination.
Cents. Yeah, like Wu Mao is 50 cents.
This is despite the fact they already have more money than they'll ever be able to spend. And that's a trait we're very familiar with. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's a free bottle of water. That lost generation will go for it even if they're millionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time, my wife's father was using his cancer diagnosis to emotionally blackmail her into bringing our family back to China. This is a very common tactic.
Dude, I just have to interject that this is very... Remember I interviewed that foreigner who was in serious trouble a couple of episodes ago, and it was the same thing because his wife didn't want to go back to China. They didn't want to go. They had a good life in the USA, but it was the grandparent, or it was a grandparent who got cancer or got some problem, and they used that as blackmail to get him back and force them to stay there. Now he can't leave.
Right, exit ban. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll try not to interrupt too much.
Sure. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's not. That's not your fault.
I'm good at interrupting. Watch me.
We'd been back and forth from Australia to China since 2004, but never settled there because her father was so verbally and psychologically abusive. We'd go to China, get sick of the mind games and abuse, and then come back to Australia. Unfortunately, despite knowing better, we'd usually end up going back to China. My wife was fearsomely loyal to her dad, even though he'd screwed us over many times, and naturally he knew how to manipulate her exceedingly well. And that's filial piety, right?
Sure.
So back to Australia, circa 2012. We were adamant not to go back to China this time, but Jane was under incredible amounts of stress because of her father's cancer diagnosis and emotional blackmail. Eventually, she broke, quite literally. She started having panic attacks, and not long after that, she was diagnosed with depression and put on to antidepressants. Unfortunately, she was misdiagnosed. The antidepressants triggered a manic episode, and she went crazy. Violent suicide attempts, delusions, voices, a complete psychotic break. Luckily, I was able to get her to a doctor, and she was sectioned. I.e. required to submit a compulsory treatment for a period of 7 weeks. It was a long road back to sanity. At the end of it, she was a shadow of her former self. It was one of the saddest periods of my entire life, particularly because in the midst of her illness, all she fixated on was her negative thoughts and energy on myself. The doctor explained that this was a common occurrence, but after more than a decade of love and sacrifice, it was very hard to bear. I thought about our relationship and her very fragile health very seriously. Eventually, I figured being back in China actually might be the best thing for her recovery. So very reluctantly, we returned. Happily, it appeared to have the desired effect. The light returned to her eyes. Bringing my wife back to China, it was like bringing a fish back to water. Everything went well for a time. Her parents behaved themselves. And for the first time ever, we found ourselves settling in. So they're finally back settled in now.
Sure.
Fast forward to 2018. My wife's dad is dead, obviously the cancer. But now we are staying in China to look after the stepmother. Life was pretty good, but my wife was unhappy with her medications. She was on some antipsychotic medicine. The pills smoothed out the highs and lows, but she found herself becoming dissatisfied with constantly being in the middle, neither happy nor sad. I could relate, but to be honest, I preferred that to her losing her mind again. Apparently, she didn't agree, and she thought she could manage her condition. Essentially, have her cake and eat it too. I didn't realize until later she started altering her regimen, i.e. she took less and less medication, oftentimes missing out altogether, and she was a ticking time bomb, and it wasn't long before she went off. And this is where it gets bad.
Wait, before you get into the more bad stuff, I have to talk about mental health in China.
Yeah.
It's abysmal.
Yeah. Mental health care.
Both.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife, one of the duties my wife as a doctor in China, one of her duties, she's a GP, mind you. She's
Right.
not a mental health specialist.
No.
One of her duties was she had like an Excel spreadsheet of all the mental patients in the district, okay? And a huge district. And she'd have to call up the family members.
Check in.
And basically say, are they taking their medication? Yes, no, check, done, okay? And if there were problems, she'd have like a police liaison that she would have to talk to go there to check it up. That's it. They leave it all in the hands of the families, okay? Very, very badly monitored, and the families can tell you piss off, and there's nothing you can really do. The way it works in China is terrible. There's no real infrastructure to deal with mental health.
Well, it's the belief that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and the thing is, especially with the one-child policy, usually if they found out there's any chance of Down syndrome or any kind of a thing like that, they abort the baby anyway, right? So it's kind of rare to see mentally disabled people in China. You actually, in the 14 and a half years that I lived in China, I probably saw, like, in public, a mentally disabled person about 5 times.
I only saw them begging.
Yeah, that's different. That's professional begging. But actually, like, as in going to a shopping mall or something and seeing someone being pushed in a wheelchair, maybe 5 times in 14 and a half years.
Sure.
Different, you pop over to Hong Kong or any other Western country, it's quite common. And there's facilities like there to cater for them, and you get like actual mental hospitals, you get insane asylums, you get all the stuff that people need in order to take care of this. China doesn't have the infrastructure to take care of mental illness. It's never dealt with. It's always just kind of procrastinated. It's like, just, let the family look after it. Oh, it's okay. Just ignore it. It'll go away. It'll get better. And it never does. And you have massive amounts of mental health issues. And you do have people going off in China, like, doing these mass stabbing sprees and stuff. And whenever this happens, they always say, oh, mental health problem. Every time.
Right.
Even if it's not. Even if it's just a disgruntled person.
Right.
But I just wanted to put that forward, that when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, China is probably one of the worst countries in the entire world.
And I really think it stems from the lack of belief in mental health problems.
Yeah.
Like even doctors I've talked to don't believe in anxiety or depression or anything like that.
Sure.
It's not a real thing.
Yeah, just like drink hot water and balance your chi.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yeah, let's get into the depressing stuff. I'm feeling very chipper. I think I need to be taken down.
It's not like I want to do this. I just really related to that last story. And I think the guy needs help.
Sure.
I woke up one more. So remember, she's off her meds now.
Yeah.
To catch you guys up because you went on a rant about mental health, which is pertinent.
Yeah.
I woke up one morning to discover she had fully relapsed and taken both of our sons in the car to her mother's house over 4 hours away. Now that's got to be scary.
Yeah.
It was November 2018. I called her and discovered that she was totally psychotic again, and apparently she was divorcing me after 13 years of marriage.
Okay.
I messaged her mother immediately to let her know what was happening. And I begged her to get my wife help and be extra careful around her. In her state of mind, it was very possible that she might hurt herself or others. Despite being fully aware of Jane's medical history and multiple suicide attempts, Mom decided to ignore me. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that when she heard my wife wanted a divorce, Mom probably thought that all of her Christmases had come at once. Finally, I'd be out of the way, and Jane and our children would finally belong to her. Just a quick aside, Jane's dad and stepmom couldn't have kids, although they desperately wanted one, so she's adopted.
Yeah, okay.
They once pressured us to sell our youngest to them for 5 million RMB. You can see how that is pertinent to the story.
5 million RMB, yes.
Selling children in China is a thing, by the way.
Well, that's why there's so much kidnapping, is because
it's profitable.
They sell the kidnapped children to rural families. You have to understand that.
Right.
Okay.
Escaping the constant pressure was one of the reasons we left China back in the day. So, I mean, his wife, Jane, she wanted to leave China to begin with. They had left.
Yeah.
But familial pressure, filial piety, as we always talk about, brings them back.
You also have to understand, and it is true. I can quite clearly say that I don't miss South Africa. There are certain parts that I miss about it, but I'm very adaptable. It doesn't matter where I go in the world. I can learn to live with that particular place. I absolutely love America. I think it's fantastic. The lifestyle here is incredibly good. I don't yearn for South African lifestyle.
No.
You know, hey man, maybe I miss some of the food.
I miss Taiwan, I miss Japan.
Yeah, I miss that kind of stuff, but it's not like...
You need it.
Right? Yeah, but for the majority of Chinese people I know who leave China, they miss that.
Yeah.
They super miss that like vibrant chaos.
Right.
They're not used to quiet areas.
I mean, it is fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but they super miss it. You know, it's like, it's difficult. I think anyone who has a Chinese wife or a Chinese husband...
I miss China, but there's a difference in the way that it's missed. I don't miss China for its chaos. I miss other things.
Yeah, sure.
They miss the cacophony of awesome,
and
crazy
they do,
stuff.
Honestly, feel like a fish out of water, like I said. And it's tough because what do you do? You know, what do you do? Like sometimes they just need to go back to China or go to a similar situation where it's just like constant movement, constant chaos, constant people everywhere. If you grow up around that, I guess you start to miss it when it's not there.
Correct.
You know, it's difficult sometimes to deal with the quietness and the order of a Western society. Sure. You know.
I mean, that's why a lot of Chinese people will go to Queens or downtown LA or Vancouver, because there's a lot going on. It's
got to be moving. It's got to be noisy. That's renal, they say.
Trust me.
You got to understand China.
You got to understand China. All right, can we get back into this?
Okay, all right. So I understand why he thought it was a good idea to take her back. Is what I'm saying.
And it worked. It worked clearly from his story.
But it was the toxic family crap that really destroyed it. Anyway, continue.
Now to quickly brush through this next part. This is terrible and tragic. A lot of stuff happened where they wanted to divvy up basically assets, more or less, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what happens with that, right?
Sure.
So it turns out the next year was sheer hell. All of our family assets were in the wife's name, either out of necessity or convenience, and we know how that works in China. It's very difficult
as a foreigner. Try buy a house or something, you can't, or a car. Although it's technically possible, the amount of hoops you have to jump through make it next to impossible. Whereas if you get your wife to just sign it, it's like straight away.
Also, the state of mind she was in. She wanted me isolated and penniless, he claims. And we can't confirm any of this, but I was shocked beyond words that the change in her personality was so scary. It was the first time crazy wife actually hated me. So it was the first time she actively hated him. I didn't know what to do. I was a nervous wreck. I had no money and 2 friends I could rely on. Fortunately, my survival instincts kicked in. Misery turned into anger and determination. I resolved to do everything in my power to get my wife help and rescue my boys.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What followed was the worst year ever, and despite the odds being against me, I managed to support myself and recover my eldest son. I even scraped together the cash to pay for a lawyer to stall out the divorce proceedings until February 2019. I was hoping that given enough time, she would regain her senses. Unfortunately, without medication, this is just not going to happen. Her mother even got a doctor who is a family friend to rubber stamp a clean bill of mental health for her. And that's the thing in China, you can bribe your way out of anything.
It's terrible, and I'm going to interject again because
Sure.
I just have to, because I've seen a lot of this stuff happen.
Me too.
My wife constantly had to turn people away because, she's one of the few doctors who actually did try to stick to her morals, because you will get people coming into the clinic and saying, write me a prescription for like XYZ because they want it, even though it's against the law.
Right.
And usually they give a hongbao, a red packet or something, and then the doctor will write it anyway. It's super easy. You saw on Taobao how we could just buy I've tested negative for COVID-19.
You can buy it on Taobao for like 3 RMB.
Yeah, you can buy it. So it's like you can go and get pretty much any official document if you know the right person, or if you...
a degree.
Yeah. So there's always ways to sidestep things officially and sidestep the law, and so she got that done.
Sure.
Yeah.
People say they can't hear me when I'm speaking.
Oh, okay. Speak louder.
Or into the mic.
Okay.
Okay. Where were we here? Oh, without
the
medication.
rubber stamp.
Rubber stamp.
The
Okay,
fake
cool.
bill of health.
Things were looking pretty grim, but just as I thought, it couldn't get any worse. Jane totally loses it again. And this time after terrorizing our youngest son for hours, which is, I hate when kids are involved.
Yeah.
She throws herself out an apartment window to her death.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess it just finally culminated in...
she was off her meds.
Yeah. Culminated in...
After that rubber stamp. I mean, her mom is complicit in her death.
Oh, absolutely.
She got a rubber stamp of clean mental health. My son saw everything. His final memory of her was seeing her lifeless body 20 floors down. It took a long time for me to convince him it wasn't his fault, as it was the last thing she told him as she jumped.
That it's his fault?
Yes.
Lovely.
It's
mental health, man. It's a big issue in China, and people don't talk about it because they can't. Like, families are ashamed of it. Society shuns it. There's no infrastructure to deal with it. It's a huge issue.
This bothers me to no end. As terrible and tragic as this was, at least I could be together with my boys again. Everything was going to be okay, or so I thought. My wife died without a will. All of our family's assets that were in her name, particularly our apartment, now need to be divided amongst myself, my boys, and my wife's 2 stepmothers. Yes, she has 2. I wasn't happy. That's our family's money and my life savings and all I have left to raise the kids with. But the law is the law, right? And I won't quote that Chinese, but not a damn thing I can do about it. At least the ordeal was over with, right? It should be a simple matter to divide the assets and move on to with our lives, right? Wrong. Mother dearest doesn't want the assets divided because of some of those assets happen to be shares in the family business, and she'll be damned if my boys or I'm going to get any part of those. I tried to tell her I wasn't interested in them, but she wasn't prepared to speak to me, let alone negotiate a deal to fairly split the assets. Another year has passed and it's been horrible, guys. Mom has tried to prevent us from obtaining the paperwork needed to file an inheritance case. When that failed, she stalled us endlessly, hoping that we would run out of money and abandon our case. Obviously, she could care less if her grandkids starve or end up on the streets. She's doing her best to crush us and run off before the court hears our inheritance case. Yet, we persevere. But she's far from finished. Every chance she gets, she throws obstacles in our way. One by one, I defeat them, but it's exhausting and expensive. If it was just me, I might have already given up. But I have to think of my boys. This just about brings me to present day and the reason I'm contacting you. A few days back, I had a small victory, and I was enjoying a brief period of not feeling like shit. I was ordering some delivery food on Meituan that's kind of like DoorDash. Strange? There's a problem with the payment. I check with the bank, and it turns out the mother-in-law has had the courts freeze my bank account. She says the money also forms part of the inheritance case, and she doesn't want me to spending it in case she misses out on what is rightfully hers. This woman is a multimillionaire, as if the paltry sum in my account means anything to her. It's just more tricks. I wasn't happy, but I calmed myself down thankfully as I had a small amount of gold in reserve. We weren't going to starve, not today at least. It wasn't long after that there was a knock at the door. Our lawyer had advised us that mother-in-law was sending some documents, but he wasn't sure what they were. So there's a postman standing in our doorway with delivery for me and my 2 sons. A birthday card from Grandma, perhaps? Not a chance. The 3 of us are being sued. Grandma claims my wife borrowed 2 million RMB off of her and is demanding that the debt be split between us and paid back immediately. I'm blown away by these tactics, guys. What kind of grandmother does this to her own grandchildren? To make things worse, my lawyer won't even help me without paying him more cash because, of course, this is a separate and unrelated case. This guy even advised us to accept service of all the documents, when merely refusing to do so would have stopped the suit in its tracks. He purposely set us up for a fall, and himself for a potential payday. I wouldn't even pay him if I could. He's stupid, neglectful, lazy, and incompetent. But you know how the legal profession often operates in China. They talk a good game, and after getting you to pay all their fees up front, they more or less leave you to represent yourself. So I'm stuck with him at least until the inheritance case resolves. Did you need to say something, or can I keep going?
No, I did want to say something about this. I just wanted to say that she's the stepmother, right?
Correct.
Because
it's like
it's
Cinderella.
No, I mean, the thing is, it's bizarre to me that somebody would behave so badly towards their grandchildren. It's evil, right? But in China, if there isn't like actual blood familial...
Oh, true. That's a really good point.
She's not going to give a crap. She's just going to use these people as to her own advantage. She couldn't care less. And that's something you find out very quickly in China, is that if you're not blood related, you're just a piece of crap. Like all these foreigners that go over there and get married to Chinese women or Chinese men, and they integrate into the family and they have kids and they think that they're all like hunky-dory and everything's great.
It's worrying.
What they don't understand is that you can get cut out like that. Oh, get the hell out. You're not Chinese. You're not really part
Obviously,
of our family.
like a good chunk of these people's families are not going to be evil like this,
but
the potential legally is there.
You know, one thing, guys, both C-Milk and myself have a lot of subscribers, okay? And especially in the earlier days, a big reason why a lot of people followed my videos is because they were dating Chinese women or Chinese men, or they were in a relationship, they're getting married. And I've heard a lot of bad stories.
That's the majority of my Patreon questions.
A lot of bad stories about how they lost so much money. They lost everything. They bought an apartment together with their wife. And then, you know, the wife divorced them. The family pressured her into divorcing them. And then he couldn't even go back into his own house because now the police won't let him back in. He gets deported. He loses everything. It happens a lot, right?
It does.
So the fact that the grandkids are the result of... They're not related at all by blood to her. She couldn't care less.
That doesn't mean anything to us.
No, I mean, like, that's the thing. I understand why she's being so absolutely evil. It's not justification, but it's like I can understand why.
Yeah, it's good to tell the subscribers
because
that as well.
If the thing is, if they were blood related, she probably would have made sure that he couldn't have custody and would have taken them away.
Yes, I mean, if she was that evil, right?
Well, I mean, we saw what happened with
that, right?
With Michael Simpson.
Right.
It's a similar kind of thing. Anyway.
So let me round out this guy's story. I know you guys are very invested now. This is good for the listeners out there. You don't even have to watch our faces. But so to summarize, the wife went crazy and killed herself. All my family money is tied up in assets that I'm being prevented from accessing. My boys are traumatized. They need counseling and they're stuck in China because if they leave, the courts may not consider allocating them a share of the late wife's estate. Add this to the CCP virus and all the crap that came along with it. Mix in the fact that my bank account is frozen and we're being sued for 2 million RMB. The cherry on top, my lawyer wants a small fortune to deal with a frivolous lawsuit. Gosh darn it, guys. This is one humdinger of a shitty situation. Yeah. And it's the only one that I have left. Now, the $1 million question is, why am I messaging you? Well, I've hit a bit of a dead end. I need your help. Nothing too serious. I need a referral, really. So we talked about, I spoke to him at length about the legal situation, lawyers he can talk to. Yeah. It's going to be more of the same probably, but you might get lucky with a pro bono dude that really just wants to help him out. Yeah. And really, that's pretty much it. He did send a follow-up. We'll probably... I'm in contact with him right now. I want to see how this ends up, and we'll give you guys... He sent me a big follow-up, but we'll do it next time. Probably in Guanxi Corner.
Here's something that I have to add here. I saw some comments that people are like, you should just leave, you should run. What you don't understand is that he probably can't.
No, it's exit ban.
Yeah. Remember we interviewed John, that guy called John?
Why do people keep thinking you can just run away?
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, John, the gym guy.
The gym guy who got into a legal dispute because he basically signed his business over and it had some debt or something.
And it's not even 1% of what this guy's stealing with money wise.
200,000 RMB or something. Anyway, the fact of the matter is he found out quite rudely when he tried to go on holiday that he wasn't allowed to leave China because there was an open court case involving money.
Right.
So this guy probably couldn't leave if he tried because of this court case against him. So it's a terrible situation to be in, and I need to hammer this home to everyone out there. As a foreigner in China, you have no rights. You are dealing with a system which is based on corruption. It's based on relationships. It's based on who knows who. It's nepotism. It's guanxi. It's connections. And you don't stand a chance. And also the language barrier. If you can't read and write Chinese, all the legal documents and stuff that they throw at you, it's seriously, seriously bad.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, look, my heart goes out to this guy.
Big time.
He's dealing with something that's absolutely
like hell.
Disgusting.
And the more I read the follow-up, I was just like, I'm dying. Like this, I can't imagine it was him and his kids.
Yeah, it's awful. I really hope that he manages to sort this out. And
he's going to stay in touch, and we'll keep you guys. I think you guys are probably invested now in this story. So absolutely.
Guys, a lot of you guys out there take it for granted just how well protected you are by your government and by your judicial systems.
Most countries,
Most countries. I mean, even South Africa is corrupt and garbage as it is, and you still kind of have a fair you have a fair go at it anyway, even though they're just probably going to, screw you over anyway. The fact of the matter is you still go to court. It's still the British legal system. You still get to prove your case.
Jury.
Yeah, you get to really have a chance. In China, you don't get to have that chance.
It's just the state.
Yeah.
And it's bribery.
Yeah, exactly.
State bribery.
It's pretty awful.
I remember you left my spirit with you high is all I'm feeling. Remember.
Today we're going to be talking about how we were almost arrested and we had the police called on us at Whataburger.
There's something going on here. What's going on here?
It's grab hags, dude.
Grab hags.
Can we do the double meat Whataburger?
I put in parentheses just so you know what you'll be voting on later. Remote pervs. And it's just right out there in the open in Chinese because no one's going to narc on each other, right?
This is a Whataburger. And Whataburger it is.
Lesson number 1, your shoe will always fly off.
Why is this?
And we got the cops called on us and actually were questioned by the police. Yeah. Because of your stupid contraption you made me wear.